Good morning, everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome back to the Wilton Report. And I know it's been a minute since we were together, but with the holidays and everything else going on in the world, plus the market was a little bit slow in December, which we'll talk about. And we are going to do a recap today of 2022. So we're going to get to it. We have a fair amount to cover. Again, if you're listening on Spotify or Google or Apple Podcasts, I always recommend checking us out on YouTube on the Wilton Report on YouTube, just because you get a better flavor of the data. So let's do the national recap first, because I think it's going to lay a little bit of detail into what's happening locally, even though it's like the tale of two cities between the national market and the Princeton market. So this is from the NAR, National Association of Realtors. I was on a webinar with them, and I managed to get my hands on the slide deck. This was presented by Lawrence Yun, I believe a PhD. He's the chief economist for the National Association of Realtors. Very smart guy, pretty conservative, has done a pretty amazing job of calling what's going to happen with the market. So we're going to do a little bit of a recap of 2022, and we're going to do a little bit of a forecast for 2023 and beyond nationally. And then we're going to do the same thing locally here in Princeton. So this first slide is fairly obvious. It's the U.S. median home price. So the U.S. median home price went from 150,000 to about 400 some odd thousand in 2022. I should say in 2000 was 150, and then 2022 was 400. So you can see there's a little bit of a drop in the median price in 2022. So towards the end of the year. So, nationally, home prices are in a little bit of a slide, not massive, but nationally, home prices are down. And of course, when people move to Princeton or in Princeton, they say, well, home prices are crashing. I want to get a deal. So we're going to talk about that today in a little bit of detail. This is existing home sales nationally. So you can see things really started to slow down in April of 2022. The number of transactions nationally dropped rather precipitously. That was interest rate hikes. That's where the Fed said, look, we got to put a brake on inflation. Rightly so. They started raising rates, and you saw existing home sales fall, which you will see is true in Princeton to an extent. So the big question is this: is there a home price crash coming? And I did not make that slide, so the typo at the top, you can call Lawrence Yun in his office and tell him he had a typo. So the last housing cycle, meaning 2007, 2008, where the market really crashed, there was 8 million job cuts. This time, so far, none. I mean, there's definitely job cuts coming. I think we're going to see a year of, kind of shaky job reports. Payroll salary jobs, we went from 130 million in the last cycle to 153 million in this cycle. So we net gain jobs. Total jobs went from 138 to 158, right? Subprime loans were everywhere. And I looked at this morning, last year in Princeton, 3 homes were sold with a variable rate mortgage out of 297. So there are just not a lot of variable loans out there. 5-year cum to new home construction before crash. So basically what they're saying is there's no new construction, and as supply stays low, it does, unfortunately, for buyers, help support prices. Inventory in the last cycle peaked at 4 million. This time we're about 1.2 million. Inventory is still very restrained nationally as well as locally. Mortgage delinquency was 10.1%. Everybody was looking to get foreclosure purchases because they think they can get a better deal. They didn't really in Princeton because there wasn't a lot of them. This time we're at 3.6%, and homes in foreclosure at that time was 4.6%. This time it's 0.6%. As a matter of fact, there's very few homes in foreclosure in the Princeton or probably the greater Princeton market. So you will hear me say this: the 2023 market, it's not going to be rate driven. It's going to be confidence driven, consumer confidence and jobs. It always really has been. When in home sell in 18%, markets and home sell in 4% markets in terms of interest rate. It's really how confident the consumer is in their job. So you can see in New Jersey, we're kind of like smack in the middle. We've had just about 1 to 2% payroll increase from COVID. Some states are doing better than others. Florida, Texas, looks like a couple of the western states are doing better, Maryland, Virginia. So, overall, New Jersey's in pretty good shape. But again, what's happening nationally and what's happening locally in terms of jobs doesn't always translate locally to Princeton. This is the mortgage rate forecast. So everybody wants to know what's happening with interest rates. And you can see the prediction is that they're peaking now in the fourth quarter. Well, I should say last year, the fourth quarter of 2022. Whether that's right or not, I don't know. I do tend to think that rates are going to come down by the end of next year. Every indicator, every economist, every real estate kind of experts predicting the same thing. So this is Lawrence Yune's annual forecast. So, we'll look at the 2022 estimate. Well, let's look at 2021. Home prices went up 16.9%. This was done in mid-December, so the final numbers weren't in. In 2022, 16% decline in the number of homes sold nationally. Home prices went up a measly 10%, and there was 6% less in overall transaction volume in the market in 2022. In 2023, we're going to see an additional 7% decline in transactions. Home prices nationally will not go up. They're not really calling for a huge fallback in home prices, but I think what we're going to see is a pause on the rather ridiculous home price appreciation. And they're calling for a 7% decrease in overall transaction volume, dollar volume. 2024, 10% increase in home sales, 5% increase in price, 15% increase in transaction volume. So if you're asking when's the best time to try and time the market, it's really going to be, if you're confident and you're able, buy in 2023. So that would be the national forecast. So let's get micro on Princeton, and we're going to do a recap this week. Next week, we'll do more of a forecast. So we'll take a 4-year spread on the market. So in 2019, 291 homes, condos, townhouses, duplexes, the whole shebang closed in Princeton. The peak was 2021 with 370 transactions in Princeton for $433 million worth of homes, which is quite incredible. So if you're wondering where the peak market was in terms of volume, it was 2021. 2022, we went to 297 homes, so a second high in a 4-year spread at $376 million. So it's rather interesting. It's almost 100 units fewer sold from 2021 to 2022. So you see a corresponding drop in overall dollar volume, which is obviously not to be expected. So again, constrained inventory. Average sale price, this is for everything, condos, townhouses, duplex, everything. In 2019, it was $1.024 million. And you can see there was a huge jump to 2022, $1.269 million. That's average. That's for condos, townhouses, and single families in Princeton. When I show you the average sale price for a single family, it's rather jaw-dropping for Princeton. So median sales price, I like the median because Princeton has some rather large sales that kind of takes the high and the low out of the average. In 2019, we were at 901, and then in 2022, it's $1.141 million is the median average sale price. All styles of Princeton, rather incredible numbers. So again, list to sale price ratio. So this is for sellers as much as buyers, but I'm going to talk to buyers first. In 2022, the average list to sale price ratio was 101.3%. So if you offered less than the asking price and you wondered why you weren't getting the bid, it's because the average consumer, the average buyer, was paying over the asking price. It just is what it is. So in 2019, it was 94.2%. So you had, a little bit of wiggle room depending on the price point, et cetera. 2021, 101.6, 2022, 101.3. So we didn't really see a drop, and I kind of thought we might in the listed sale price ratio. And then days on market this is, again, all styles. This is everything. Went from 75 to 35 in 2022. So For all the consumers that came into the market at the end of 2022 thinking, market's crashing, I'm going to get a deal, home prices are declining, it's not. It's not. Princeton always a little bit of a seller's market to an extent. And that definitely played out in 2022. So let's talk about single-family homes in Princeton. So the average single sales price for single-family homes in Princeton in 2019 was $1.12 million. And then in 2022, $1.44 million for a single-family home average sale price. That's incredible. A little scary, actually. The median sales price was $1.350, and you can see that was a huge jump from $995. And the median throws out the high sales and throws out the low sales. So if the average single family, 1.35 million, and again, days on market went down in 4 years from 78 days to 34 days in 2022. So again, there's nothing bearing out this concept of I'm going to come in and I'm going to get a deal, because you're not. So let's talk about condo, townhouse, and duplex market. This was a coulda, woulda, shoulda. We should have all bought one in 2019 or before. The average sale price for a condo townhouse in 2022 was $777, and then the median is $726. And you can see a little bit of a drop from 2021 to 2022 in the average sale price. It's just because there are a few big townhouses in Princeton that tend to be more expensive. So when they do sell, it will skew that number. The median number went up again in 2022 from 2021. Days on market, 64, 66, 43, 41. So you're not really getting a deal at that end of the market either. And this is one of the most amazing statistical things I like to track in the market, is the number of overall cash deals that transacted in Princeton. So last year, as you recall, there was 297 transactions. 113 of them closed as cash. Now, what does that mean? It means about 35 to 45% of the market is cash. Just is what it is. So if you come into the market as a buyer, say I'm a cash buyer, well, so what? So is everybody else. And that's just the number that close as cash. So, people will present an offer as cash and then take a mortgage out along with the process. So, 2022 was a really, really robust year, despite being inventory constrained, despite a drop in overall transaction volume, despite an overall drop in dollar volume. Average price went up, days on market came down, everything sort of stayed the same, if not got better for sellers in 2022 than it was in 2021, just due to the supply issues in the market. So quick talk about forecasts for 2023. Going to be more of the same. I would say this: watch the job reports more carefully, because we've been in this rather blissful la-la land. We've been adding jobs since COVID. I should say COVID was rather dramatic in terms of our furloughs, etc. So watch the job reports. Watch the job reports nationally. Watch it on Wall Street, because Wall Street does affect this market. But overall, I don't see a huge change in the Princeton market. You're not going to get a deal. You're not going to get 10% below the average sale price. Sellers, conversely, you can't overprice your house, because you're not going to sell. Pricing, which we've talked about in the past and we'll talk about in the future, remains incredibly important to the sales process. So my quick forecast, and the next episode will be a very in-depth forecast for 2023. It will be more of the same: inventory constrained, aggressive bidding by buyers, fewer transactions in the market. So I think that, for buyers, the market hasn't broken your way yet. It's definitely a little better than it was, but just the lack of inventory and the lowering of interest rates overall has shifted the balance back to the seller. So that's it for today. It's a lot of information. Again, thank you for joining us. Happy New Year. If you're listening on Spotify, Google, or Apple, please check us out on YouTube. If you're on YouTube, conversely, you can subscribe to us on any one of those three services. So that's it. I'll have another one in the bag by the end of this week, and we'll do our 2023 forecast. And stay tuned. We have some cool events coming up this year as well. Thanks, everybody.